In the end, we'll see a change. Only will last, only will remain. I let go when time is right. I let go when time is on our side. And you made something beautiful out of something horrible. And tonight we shall go in to follow me down, down, down. It's the crime of the century. We fight for the reason only. Everyone we left behind. Tonight is brought back to every kind. Give me everything you got. Let's leave this world behind. Close your eyes and find the light. You got nothing left to lose tonight. In the end, we'll see a change. Only will last, only will remain. In the night we shall go in. Won't you follow me down, 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 down? It's the crime of the century. We fight for the reason only. Everyone we left behind. Tonight is brought back to every kind. Give me everything you got. Let's leave this world behind.
Good evening, everybody. Jacob Daniel here. This is the Daniel 3 podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I got a couple of guests who are, I don't know which one's actually been on my show more. They can inform me once I bring them up in. But we're going to have a pretty interesting philosophical discussion tonight. So I'm not going to waste any time with intros and stuff. That's just, I don't know. I tried doing that for a while and I just realized it's not my thing. So first I'll bring up Jose Galason from the No Way Jose podcast. Jose, how you doing tonight?
Doing all right. So far as the number of how many times I've been on, when people ask me how many times I've been on Daniel 3, it's kind of like being asked how many tattoos I have. It's just, I don't know, a lot. So
it's like asking how many. It's like asking how many shots you're in.
Yes.
With the joke that we've beaten to death sufficiently.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I hear you. I think this is the second time that I've had you and James on though together.
Yeah, we need to come up with a sticky name for it. Like
yeah, we do. Yeah.
I was thinking about it today, like the Holy Trinity. That'd be good.
Yeah. We gotta copy what because Reed does that. He comes up with all these cool names for when he has his round tables and stuff. So we should work on that.
It's kind of the same shtick. He's got the communion corner or whatever the hell, which is like atheists and theists, and this is 3-man. You got one person who's a theist. You got me who's an atheist, and then whatever the hell James is. He's some like weird mix in between.
Yeah, James being from the host
oh
of the
man,
I
thought you weren't going to bring me in, and y'all were just going to sit there and roast me all the time.
It was tempting. But yeah, James, what iteration of you are we getting today? Because sometimes I get Agorist James, sometimes I get a Catholic James.
So I am always theist, James. I'm never an atheist.
That's true.
I'm generally a Catholic defender, if not necessarily believer, or certainly not practicer. So that's kind of the spiritual.
Listen, I can't
I'm
give
very
you that
rarely
much.
I'm very rarely an agorist anymore.
That's true.
I waver between like the LB Muniz style of post-libertarian. I don't know. I've kind of I think rejected the popular liberty like scheme. That whole it just feels like another similar to agorism where like, oh yeah, this is how we're gonna win. Like, I mean, maybe, but probably not. So
Sure.
anyway, I'm just kind of hanging out where my friends are right now, and that's sort of in all the different camps.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, I hope you know I'm just teasing you. I mean, like, and I can't. I'm one to talk. I mean, I'm a Calvinist who likes to LARP with as a Catholic when it's convenient. So I mean, no, this is not a Tower Gang episode. I mean,
oh my God.
James hasn't even been on Tower Gang. So I mean,
I have been on Tower Gang.
Wait, you have?
I was on Tower Gang with Magnus. What's his last name? Jose
Panvidia.
Panvidia. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I refuse to acknowledge that because I want to not cry myself to sleep tonight. So
it's fine. Nobody should acknowledge it. It was terrible. I was not feeling well. I probably should have just bowed out. But anyway, hi Drew.
Yeah, how you doing, Drew? So anyway, yeah, so we have a lot that we want to talk about tonight, and honestly, it kind of worked out that you were on Adam's show yesterday, James, because you guys had an actually pretty interesting conversation with and not to shit on Adam, but also to shit on Adam, a lot deeper than the kind of discussions he usually has on his show. So it was actually.
What's the deal with shitting on Adam? Like it almost comes naturally. Like I barely know him.
I do not
like
know.
From day one, I trolled him. Like that just was it. Like,
dude, all I know is that like in the past year, my rivalry with Adam and my ongoing stick with Tower Gang have reached like such ridiculous extremes, and I don't even know how either of them started. I just know that I, have to once a week, bitch about not being on Tower Gang, and I have to make sure I tell Adam he's not funny. I don't make the rules.
Yeah, having been in several tweet threads with him for the first time in my life, I never like realized that I'm not the only one who just instinctively trolls him. It's like all of Twitter just gangs up on this poor guy.
Well, it's all in good fun.
Yeah. Oh no, obviously he takes it.
I was gonna say, I hope like people don't ever think it's ever like I mean, and Adam and I can get like pretty intense into it, but he's a great guy. I got to hang out with the Pennsylvania convention first week. Like I hung out half the weekend with you, James, and the other half with Adam, and it was a blast. Still have yet to meet Jose in person because like I don't know, I don't like traveling south of the Mason-Dixon. But
did you not go to the Tom Woods thing?
No, I did not.
I felt like I met you somewhere before in person, but I guess maybe not.
I was officiating Mike Heiss's wedding that weekend, so
okay.
It was all the Mises guys from PA didn't make it.
Yeah, I was kind of bitter with him. I was like, this is like, you're my brother, and you asked me to officiate your wedding. Like, I can't say no, but I hate you for asking me to do it on Tom Woods 2000 weekend. Like that was ridiculous because I really wanted to go to that. But
I think I've only gone to like the less than a handful of Liberty events. Now I think about it. It's been a recent development for me, but I've definitely been glad I've jumped onto it. It's been fucking great.
Dude, they're such a. Well, I mean, they're not the actual business, but other than that, they're a blast. I'm sure you don't stay for the business anyway. Like me and James, we're the masochists that like to go in there. It's funny. It's funny, like 2 years in a row, we've done these PA conventions together, and it's like we both at the beginning start out optimistic, and then by the end we're like, yeah, see, this is why we hate politics, and we're like, why are we still doing this?
I hate politics, but I love conventions. Like I'm addicted to them. It's insane.
You can separate the two.
Well, I don't know, man. Like Comic-Con doesn't have. I mean, I'm sure there's some drama there. I guess I wouldn't really know, but like, they don't have like Robert's rules and stuff like that. I really get into the parliamentary stuff. And
you enjoy that shit?
Yeah, it's kind of
James would be like on the edge of his seat, and then like as soon as like like he would time it perfectly and get up and beat everyone to the mic. I mean,
Yeah.
he
And this was
into
in
it.
Pennsylvania, where I don't even live. Like, I was a
Yeah.
complete just carpetbagger at their convention.
Dude,
Yeah.
the way he got up, and I don't know how much you follow this stuff, Jose, but like there was the governor candidate that we noted because he was a piece of garbage.
I
And
basically heard about that today. I listened to the Adam episode too.
okay, yeah.
To Prime.
So James was like the first one that got up there, which is funny because like he's not even from Pennsylvania, but like he gets up there and just like, and immediately he's like, so like I'm from Minnesota, so maybe I shouldn't be, telling Pennsylvania people how to do shit. But basically you made this post recently and you're a piece of shit. What do you have to say for it? And Joe was just like, oh, I was just telling a joke, bro.
I was much
Like-
more diplomatic than that. Although,
I
I
know.
mean, it's cool. I'm on the mic team for Reno now, so moving up in the world.
I don't even know what
Yeah.
that means, but that's cool.
Like
I'm
I'll
proud of
be
you.
making motions on behalf of our people
That
yeah.
still doesn't clear up too much, but I
at
get
the
it.
Libertarian
So-
National Convention.
I know.
All right,
I just
so-
like going to conventions and then shooting the shit. And whenever your people come out and complain about all the annoying shit, be like, well, you could have just been out here drinking with me. So
Yeah. That's what y'all did at the Tom Woods thing.
Yeah, pretty much. It was a blast. Neither of you, I'm assuming, are coming up to Florida here in a month, are you? Have you guys even heard yet?
For the thing at TopLobsta's
Yep.
new property?
Yep.
No.
So
If
little
it had been
na-
a little farther out, I probably would have tried to make it,
yeah,
but I'm doing so much
May
traveling.
7th. For those listening, I guess, who are in Florida or are willing to travel, we're having it at Top Lobster's house. He has like 10 acres out there, and it's kind of near the Villages or whatever, that kind of area. A couple hours out of Orlando, maybe even only like an hour out of Orlando. A few hours if you're in the Tampa area, but yeah, it's going to be a comedy event. Yeah, Robbie's going to bring an hour of comedy. We're going to do a live podcast with the Tower Power Hour guys with him. So kind of like a crossover with Run Your Mouth. Yeah, so pretty much all the Tower Power Hour guys are going to be there. Reed is up in the air. Reed may actually make it, but
No,
aside
man,
from
Reed's
that,
on
they're
the
all gonna
ground. He's dragging
Yeah.
a huge tractor of some sort across the country. Well, also that, yes.
If I drive down to Florida, I get to be on the live Tower Gang episode, right?
Maybe. I
Maybe.
mean, there's your opening. There's a solid. I'll give you a solid
That-
maybe there. That's
that-
That's the best maybe
Or
you've gotten so
what,
far.
what you guys would do though is you like say, okay, sit in the front row. We'll call you up when it's ready, and then you'll just keep giving me like a sign, be like, oh, one more minute, just for like the whole hour and a half, and then it just don't come up.
We'll put you in the background where you get to be one of the people holding tiki torches for the thing. So yeah. No, but yeah, that'll be fun. It'll be an hour-long event. We're an hour-long comedy, and then however long the podcast goes. Obviously, be a lot of partying, shit like that. I don't know how this is going to work when we kick you guys out, because I know some of us are going to probably end up spend the night. So that'll be a lot of fun for us guys, hanging out, spend the night with Robbie and all the boys, and having a boys' night out type thing. But yeah, if anyone's in Florida, it should be a fucking blast. There's only going to be 50 tickets, so. I mean, we've been shooting the shit about maybe having more. I guess it depends on how quick they sell. I don't know how much TopLobsta is willing to expand, if at all, because it's also on his property, because it's just Run Your Mouth or your summer porch store shit. So it's at other people's properties, which makes it more fun. So you can kind of do whatever the hell you want. We're going to show up early and shoot guns. That's not for the general population, because that could be an issue. But yeah, it'll be a fun time. So
Cool. All right, so let's get into the stuff we wanted to talk about now. I guess now we're done kind of shooting the shit. So you were on Adam's show last night, James, and you guys got into well, I guess it started because of Adam's fascination with ravens and animals having souls, which he had been talking to people on Twitter about. But then you got into the Catholic position on what souls are, which can you refresh my memory on there's material and
so
what's the other type?
It's not necessarily the Catholic position. It's kind of goes back to Thomas Aquinas, so it is a Catholic position, but there's not really the Catholic position on it.
It's the Thomist position.
Yeah, and then I got into my own interpretation of it. So let's see. So humans have spiritual souls. A spiritual soul can exist separate from the body that it ensouls. It's pure spirit, just like God. That's what it means to be made in the image and likeness of God. And then a material soul is what animals and plants have. It's what gives. It's like why a tree doesn't rot when it's still alive, but a log which doesn't have that material soul will rot eventually. It's also why trees don't go to heaven. Like the soul can't, or the material soul can't exist separately from the tree.
So a material soul is a soul that's necessarily tied to the physical object, and a spiritual soul is not necessarily tied to the physical object, basically.
Yep.
So okay, I can get behind that a little bit, but I guess where we should probably start, like, I don't even know, this is one of like the I guess like philosophical or theological topics that like I always have a hard time answering if someone asks me, is like I don't even know how to define what a soul is, nor do I even know if, like, especially in the biblical sense, is there a distinction between soul and spirit in people? And if there is,
that's kind of a bone of contention between Catholics and evangelicals, and maybe evangelicals and mainline Protestants. I don't really know the mainline Protestant point of view on it, but I do know that I have been in many deep conversations in my more Catholic days with evangelicals about the difference between soul and spirit, and typically it's the same thing for evangelicals, whereas Catholics tend to separate the two.
And what would be the separation between the two, if you could, for Catholics?
Well, just what I just said. The spirit. So a spirit is a separate entity. It's like the Holy Spirit is a spirit. The soul is what gives the material or the matter life, I guess. But because humans have a spiritual soul, that soul is able to exist separately from the body, if that makes sense.
So I guess humans have a. I'm trying to understand this, because this stuff often gets confusing for me. So, are you saying that you would say that humans have a soul which it consists of spirit, but is there a difference between the human spirit and the human soul?
I don't know. I guess that's not something I've really given a whole lot of thought to.
Yeah, it's something I have, because people ask me what the biblical position is on it, and I'm like, dude, I have no, like, I'm usually good at having answers for that, but as for it, I don't think the Bible really gives a clear distinction between if there's a difference between the spirit and the soul. I do know what you're talking about with evangelicals sometimes having very uppity views about that, but yeah.
I didn't say it.
Yeah.
One other thing though that you have to pay attention to is that in Hebrew and Greek, the word for spirit is the same as the word for breath and wind. So in a lot of ways, it might be the opposite of what I just described. Like maybe Aquinas had the two things mixed up a little bit, because trees and animals aspirate, so they have breath. So maybe it's the spirit that they possess and the soul that they don't. Maybe it's a material spirit rather than a material soul.
I mean, what I was told growing up was that the soul is that which inhabits your body, in a sense, but your spirit is that which is eternal, which I guess is kind of similar to what your take was. But I don't know. To me, it's almost like they're basically the same thing. I don't know.
Maybe it's like form and function.
Maybe. But we're doing a little bit of Christian inside baseball. And
Jose, you're a theologian. Why don't you tell us what the soul is?
I mean, if we're talking souls, I'll give you a real short one. I don't believe in souls, and when I say that, that's not me asserting they don't exist. I haven't seen anything that's convinced me that they do. So just the same thing with like God. I don't believe in God. That doesn't mean I assert there's no God. So that's a common distinction. I brought this up a million times, especially on your show. When everyone brings up atheists, they always assume that, especially I was guilty of this when I was religious. You assume when you hear atheist, you think someone asserting there is no God, and that's probably one of the biggest, misconception between theists and atheists is they talk past each other, because it's like very rarely will you find an atheist that asserts there is no God, and even if you do, he probably really hasn't thought it through that much, like, because it really is the most indefensible position that there isn't something, especially something that's insanely vague, insanely, like, it's also could literally be anywhere in the infinite universe, could be everywhere simultaneously. Like, to assert that something like that doesn't exist is really a worse claim than asserting it does exist, even if you have no evidence. Because it's like you could, at least the person asserting it does exist could at least be proved right. Like
Or-
you
or
know,
partially right.
yeah. So whereas in the
Yeah.
opposite, you can't be proven right or wrong. So well, you can be proven wrong, you just can't be proven right. So, but with souls, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've never really seen anything that really convinces me there is a soul necessarily, not even really anything that compelling. So, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's fun to talk about a little bit in the kind of put on the hat as if I was religious still, but yeah, for the most part, I don't know. I don't really. There's nothing that's compelling to me about souls, really. I mean, I'd like to believe I live after death. I don't fucking know. So.
Do you think that there is an incorporeal aspect to humans?
Don't use those fucking big words with me.
Do you think that there's? Do you think there's? Do you think that there's like?
I know what it means.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Thank you. There's like non-material.
Do I think there's a non-material aspect to humanity? I mean, I guess you could say, in a sense, and I want to be clear. I meant to kind of say this. I'm not, a lot of people always assume when it comes to like people my ilk, they're like, well, what are you, just a materialist? And you're like, I mean, in a certain sense, sort of. That's kind of like, I guess, in a way, my default, just because that just seems to be the only line of logic that has logic behind it, in my opinion. But like, it doesn't mean I'm asserting the materialist worldview. I'm open to the idea of something outside of it. It's just I'm not asserting these things don't exist. That's the key point. But a non-corporeal, do I believe there is or isn't? I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen anything that convinces me one way or the other. I lean towards that there isn't, but it wouldn't surprise me. But I can see why we would think there is, I mean, especially over millennia, I mean, how religion, propagates. Like, even if you do believe in religion, there's still a million other religions. So you at least got to be able to understand how religion propagates. You just have one given religion you believe. So I don't know. I don't really, I could keep talking in circles, but I'm kind of just not taking a stance. I don't know. I don't believe in it, but I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. And I mean, I've never really seen anything that I know. There's always that one person's like, oh, I saw a fucking ghost. And you're like, well, I haven't. So I mean, I don't. Obviously, I can't dispute your given occurrence, but it's also like, even then, it's like there's a million ways to probably explain that. So I don't know. I haven't heard anything compelling, other than the random person every now and then is like, I swear I saw a fucking ghost. You're like, okay, all right.
Yeah,
So.
I don't. To me, it's like, so like, I guess the reason I suppose the soul exists is basically the same reason I suppose God exists. We've talked about this before. It's like, because I believe that there is, in a sense, an objective, like, forces of, in a sense, and it's hard to put this in a way that's accurate, because I understand that when we're facing situations in life, there are it's kind of hard to know what is objectively right or wrong, or even suppose there is an objective right or wrong to every situation that you're going to be faced with in life. But I do believe, in sort of the more, I guess, metaphysical sense, that there is good and evil, I guess. And because I believe in that, and because I believe that humans act that out sort of necessarily, I think it sort of, to me, is why I presuppose a God and presuppose a soul. And I don't know, I still, like, I've talked to you a lot, I've talked to Reed a lot, and I still, like, this is the part of atheism I have the hardest time trying to understand. And I don't mean to suppose atheism is a monolithic philosophy. I know it's not, but yeah, I don't understand how, like, where people who don't have at least some sort of, even if it's just that, like, kind of cringy, vague, like, oh, I don't know, I don't believe in a God, I'm just spiritual, like, and that drives me nuts. But at least that's, like, something.
Me too.
Like, I can get.
I'd rather you just be like, I'm this. And you're like, okay, like,
No,
you're just kind of being a fucking annoying douche.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
I don't really believe in any prescribed religions. I'm very spiritual. Like,
or
okay.
the like I think that all religions are true, or it's just like that stuff's like, I don't know, I hate that.
Most religions disagree with you. So.
Yeah. Right. Or I love the ones, little tangent, the ones that are like, I just think Jesus was a really smart, wise man. I was like, well, to me, it's like if you actually read the shit that is accredited to Jesus, he was either the son of God or like he should have been locked in an insane asylum because he made some pretty crazy fucking claims.
People always do that though. I gotta push back on that because it's always a go-to for religious people. They'll say that they'll be like, well, he either was the son of, so he was either son of God or he was just a liar. Are you trying to say Jesus is a liar? And that's usually, I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but like people always try to boil it down to two positions. Like, no, there are a million other possibilities here. Like a lot of people try to boil it down to these two. It's like it could be that over the course of thousands of years, maybe this was a few stories of real people who got incorporated to one. Maybe I'm not even saying that's the case. I'm just saying there's a million different things that could be what Jesus has become in a colloquial sense, especially since if you start looking into like actual accounts of his existence aside from the Bible, it's pretty scant, and most of them aren't. Actually, I don't. The last time I looked, it's been a long time. I don't even think there were any aside from the biblical accounts that were during his like while he was alive. I may be wrong on that, but I remember there was some person who was like either 50 to 100 years after his death was the one that gets accredited to the most. But my point being, it's not this open and shut thing that one, he exists, and two, he was either a liar or he was the son of God. So there's still a bunch of other possibilities there. So
well,
I'm not even trying to make a case against God's existence or Jesus' existence, but I'm just saying, logically speaking, that a lot of people try to boil it down to this simple logic point. I'm like, not really.
Well, now you've taken my tangent and you're trying to lure me in my autism into an argument, and I'm going to dodge it and get back on topic.
Yeah.
So,
you're fucking right.
Yeah. So, before we got on the tangent, we were talking about shit. I don't even remember now. I'm so like. Yeah.
I really throw you off that bad?
You did. So we were talking about the soul, and we were talking about so to me the part of atheism I have the hardest time trying to understand. Like if I was going, like when I go through like the sort of intellectual exercise, I'm like, all right, let me pretend, suppose for a moment I don't believe in God. And if I don't believe in God, let me suppose that I think that naturalism is the most probable worldview. Then it's like, okay, me trying to be as charitable as I can in this intellectual exercise, I have a hard time conceptualizing where I would derive right and wrong from and why I would view humans as creatures with any sort of inherent value, I guess, which you might, and now, and to be clear, I'm not even trying to say that's what you would explicitly say, but I think that this is what humans implicitly do, whether they would, acknowledge it or not. So I have a hard that is my hurdle, and that's sort of why I presuppose we have a soul. And this will get into the later part of our discussion, which is we were also going to talk about the question that like so Malice, when he said this in a few different places when he's talking about like the difference between the left and the right. And it's like, how do you answer this question? Are there some people that are better than others? Which I think for me, I get hung up on that question because
yes.
Yes. Well, here's the thing. I kind of say it depends. Like, yes, but no.
I don't mean to cut you off, but you dropped a few things I feel like I need to respond to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you gonna? I mean, if you feel like you want to keep going, I didn't know if you were leading into something else. But I'm like, are we just breezing over those 2 points? Because I felt you asked me a question. And
so I'm just kind of like explaining why I think this is an important first thing to establish, or at least talk about, is the soul. Because to me, it's like my views on if humans have souls sort of informs my answer to that question too.
Yeah.
So, but go on, answer to the things I said, and then give James a chance to respond.
You basically brought up 2 points, and to boil them down, it's the morality question. Objective, subjective. How do you even derive a morality absent of a deity? And then the other question would be like the whole like slipping into nihilism thing. For one, I think nihilism. Okay, there's different types of nihilism. I feel like this one's the easiest one to address real quick. There are different types of nihilism. There's nihilism being the idea that nothing matters or whatever, and there is a type of nihilism that is there is no like grand meaning, as in there's no like God or deity or this thing that has a plan for your life, and you have this magical mapped out plan for your life or whatever. And like that doesn't necessarily denote that you would have a negative outlook on the world if that's the case, because I actually do like that is my default belief, because I haven't seen anything that has given me any cause to believe that there is some magical objective path for my life or meaning or whatever. But absent of that, I can say I get to say that I get to create my own value, which is fine by me. And I feel like it's, in some ways, depending on how you look at it, I actually feel like it's a lot freer way to look at the world, that I'm not constantly looking for some meaning in the world, looking for some path to go down. If anything, it's more grab life by the balls and go do what I want to do. And even if you were religious, I think that to some extent that's actually a semi-decent, good way to look at the world, because it's almost this like even if there is a grand meaning for you, it's also like, I'm sure that you would say that God would want you to grab life with the balls and just do it. It's just a matter of perspective type deal.
Well, I could even, I mean, just to quickly interject there, I could even say, like here's the thing. I could even, like, let's say I leave God off the table, which like I don't actually do, but let's say I leave God off the table. I could almost, in that intellectual exercise, I could give up the idea of God existing, especially like Christian God, but I'd have a hard time presupposing that naturalism was true. And I guess that might be to be more specific. It's like we can say there's no grand plan. Like it could almost be like a deist argument, right? Like there was some sort of creator, some kind of first cause, and there's some sort of, there's but I guess what I'm getting at is I have a hard time. This is going back to James' question. And maybe we should. I mean, I did interrupt you, so I'll let you finish. I do want to get James back in, but it's like I have a hard time understanding how people can think that what is most likely true is that reality is just material. Like again, I'm not saying I can absolutely prove that it isn't that, you know what I mean? Like, again, like there's no way for us to know, but in terms of what is more probable, I feel like we have more reasons to believe that it's probable that there's more than just what is material to reality and existence, especially with things like the things we're talking about, like with consciousness, morality, and the idea of a soul. It's like, to me, it's hard to say that these are just complete like social constructs that don't point to something, some kind of ghost in the machine.
I mean, I don't see why they can't, especially like you were talking about this thing with souls, and Adam brought up the point when it comes to ravens and stuff. And I'm not even saying, once again, I'm not asserting. I'm actually completely. If I actually had to make some sort of cosmic guess, I would think that somehow, somewhere, like I guess like it does make it a little bit easier and wrap in a bow if there's some sort of deist thing behind it. But at the same point, I still won't call myself a deist just because of the fact that I wouldn't assert that, because I don't fucking know. I just don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. And so to say I operate off of naturalism is just kind of like, that is the only thing I can operate off of, because and I think we've had this talk before, and how I derive my logic, or like my starting point is my senses, and it goes out from there. And that's how I interact with the world. So at the end of the day, this is the best thing I have to work with. It's not even I'm saying that this is all there is. It's just that all that I have access to. So it's the only thing I can operate off of and move forward from there.
All right. So let me see if I can steel me on that. And then I promise, James, I want to get you into this. So Jesus. To steel me on that,
when you get autistic people started, Jose, this is what happens.
We haven't even touched morality, which is the best.
I'm just on mute the entire hour, and
you're just the eye candy, James. Okay, I mean,
Jacob has to get to the bottom of everything.
Well, you can't just drop like three things and be like, "Well, that's why I can be an atheist," and then breeze on to the next thing. But go on, sorry.
So just to steel me on that, you're saying it's not that you would even say that you perhaps would even say. Sorry, I'm repeating myself. Let me put it this way. What you're not saying is that you think it's more likely to be true that naturalism is true and that's all there is, but that would be more accurate to say that the only way you know how to operate in the world is sort of by in a sort of naturalist framework, and that's what works for you.
Yeah, because anything else is just kind of unproven. It's not even necessarily unproven. It's just kind of, it's on faulty ground. And that's not to say there aren't other things. Just like, how do I, in any accurate way, incorporate that information into any useful way? you know what I mean, when it comes to like spirits or this or that, and until I can have some sort of other way to show some sort of semi-tangible aspect of it, it's just like, why would I incorporate that into my thinking?
So for you, it's less about the philosophical or scientific truth, more about the pragmatic utility, I guess.
I guess in a sense, sort of.
Okay.
I also still, even on the other side, I haven't been convinced. And even though I said I'm more open to the idea of like a deist thing or something, that also doesn't mean that like that I would just throw away my operandus mundi of kind of like interacting with the material world based on like a materialist framework, what we know through science, et cetera, et cetera. Doesn't mean I buy every single thing I've seen. It's just it's the best thing we got to work with. I mean, I'm the first one to call out all the COVID bullshit, so I know there are issues. It's not like I'm some trust the science fucker, but at the end of the day, like, I know throwing in woo-woo thinking where it really shouldn't be, and that's not to say those things don't exist, just doesn't make sense to me, I guess. I guess everyone just accused you of being a materialist, and it's kind of like, well, I think in a lot of ways the religious people are pretty materialist too and don't even realize it, because what person really actually takes that religious side of things and then like incorporates it to that degree? Like, I don't know, like, this is kind of like
you're gonna have to just cut me off because I don't know if we can hold back the autism, man.
The only people I would say would be like the orthodoxes or the presuppositionalists. Those would be the only people who I think aren't, because everyone else is operating under that, because they still do try to. A lot of them will try to argue God through logic and using material arguments and such. Hardly anyone throws out and just goes, well, fuck all that science shit. Like, it's only the orthodox and the presuppositionalists, and I can respect that. I'm like, okay, like, at least that's a consistent way of thinking.
It's the era that we live in. I mean, it's not like that's always been the case, Jose. I mean, the fact that we're kind of on the tail end of the Enlightenment right now, it means that you have spent your entire life, and every book that you've ever read has been written in an era where people were making scientific arguments. That doesn't mean it's the only way to see things. It's just the only way you've seen people see things.
I guess my point being, though, to kind of get what you're getting, maybe correct me if I'm not getting what you're getting at. If someone started making a religious argument that wasn't based in some sort of observable or logical proof or some sort, I mean, cool, you can have that talk to your blue in the face. I don't know to what extent I'm really supposed to engage with that, because you're like, well, we're talking about these things that I don't really have a way of knowing. Maybe you're right. I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just, I don't know. I guess that's kind of my point that I'm getting at. It's like, and I feel like even most religious people, whether they realize or not, basically operating under a materialistic type, way. And you may even agree with that.
I agree with that. I don't think that I mean, it's just what I just said. I think that pretty much everyone is a modernist, and so they come at it from a modernistic way of seeing things that started with the Reformation, really ramped up in the Enlightenment, and here we are, 2 atomic bomb drops later, and seeing the fruit of that. So that's why it's one of the reasons why I kind of reject modernism. I think I've swung a little too far to the postmodernism direction at some points in my thinking, but I definitely don't think that the hyper materialistic, Ayn Rand, Karl Marx, Martin Luther type of.
Do you think the problem, James, is that like people like I think like one thing we have in common, and I think even Jose, we all have this in common, is that like we're not ideologues, and I think like a lot of people fall into the trap of either having no principles at all or they become an ideologue, and I feel like what we all kind of sort of consciously do is we try to avoid both pitfalls, and to try to even with like I always try to, even if there's like a philosophy or a doctrine, or like within Christianity, for example, a denomination that I disagree with, I always like, I love that Jordan Peterson rule, assume the person you're talking to knows something that you don't. And I always try to like, okay, like there's probably, some wisdom or some, glimmer of truth or something useful in this, even if I reject, 95% of it. I mean, it kind of like a good comparison is like at the beginning we were talking about, you know, the various like, you know, like Mises caucus, or then there's, you know, Andrew's GOP stuff, and there's agorism, and like you and I have both kind of like, you know, talked to a lot of these people and sort of explored these different things. We never really settle on one, and I think the reason is like because I just you know, again, maybe this is just my brand of autism. I hate the insistence that like you have to pick one strategy and that's your thing. It's like I don't know, like there are elements of all of them that I like, and I think the real autist thing is that we all must do the same thing. Like, you know, that's been my intuition all along, and you know, I think that you know, so the parallel to that is um what you're talking about, to bring it back, I guess, would be that, um, you know, what, as far as like you were saying, you rejected modernism, but then went too far to postmodernism. Like you got really, I guess you would say you think you went too deep into that, and now you're trying to like come back and find, you know, is it just like a balance of both, or is there a third option? Like, what are you trying
I don't
to get
know.
at now?
So you know, I mean, I think I've even been on your show to talk about integral theory, and I don't know if that's the answer or not. It's sort of a synthesis of not only modernism and postmodernism, but like everything, like every ism going back to the beginning of time, or at least at the beginning of civilization. I think that's cool. I don't know. I mean, philosophically, I'm probably a Stirnerite, like just complete egoist.
So we're always principled.
But yeah, well, yeah, but then practically the way that I think that manifests, and I think that other people should manifest that, is something like conservatism, and I don't like that. I mean, you know, I fuck dudes, so it's a little bit weird saying that, but
Okay, Dave
like,
Rubin. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
why I never came out of the
my
closet.
dog didn't like that either.
I didn't know that. I guess that was a dog whistle. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry.
Apparently,
You know.
I'm gonna have to mute till he stops barking. Someone just knocked on the door. Y'all talk.
No, but you know, it's funny. It's funny you said that, because like I think, like some people, I don't know why, but like most of the sterner people I encounter online are not like Jose, who like a lot of them are like they just take it to like this cringe left thing,
Yeah.
and I don't know, like I feel like. You know, I almost feel like there's something maybe at least a little Sterner-esque in the way I approach my theology or whatever, because like I've listened to all the, so like Jose was talking about like people, the presuppositionalists, or the people that try to reason their way to God, and I don't know, I like some of those arguments.
What are presuppositionalists? Y'all have mentioned that twice.
Okay, presuppositionalists are so it's kind of like,
can I explain it real quick?
It's,
I think I can do it.
like, it's like half clever and half retarded way to prove God exists.
Wait, are they the ones that are like given God, prove God?
Pretty much. It's kind of like,
well, it's
sort of
kind of the point I was getting at earlier, this is kind of what I was getting at, where I said like the way my logic works, and this is how a lot of people, I think most people derive their logic, because they start from what they can actually interact with. Because if you go too far back, you end up in solipsism, which is, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's the idea of that, like, it's like only you exist, everything else just a fantasy. It's because it's kind of like, what do you accept as evidence in this world of something, you know, being, you know, real or whatever. And most people start with their fucking feelings, you know, their senses, and work out from there. And that's how most people interact with the world. Presuppositionalists, their starting point of logic is literally God. So that's what, and like, it sounds like I feel like until you see someone arguing it, then you're like, wait, what the fuck? Because it really is just a matter of go ahead.
Well, sometimes the Calvinist presuppositionalists, which I'm more familiar with, they actually start with the Bible. And so sometimes people will straw me on Calvinists of like, you know, their God is the Bible, which like I that doesn't really apply to me, but for the presuppositionalists, it kind of is, because they literally go like, we start with the Bible. Why? And like, so their sort of assertion is because the Bible is the only thing that makes sense of reality. And why is it the only thing that makes sense of reality? Because it says it's the only thing that makes sense of reality. And it's just kind of like, it is sort of circular. But what they try to do, which here's like the half clever part, is they sort of say, well, everybody is borrowing moral language from Christianity and the Bible, which is proof to its legitimacy. But that's sort of
or Christianity is just using human nature and common sense to derive morality.
True. There's that. I mean, but yeah, I don't know. That always felt like it was just sort of like pigeon shitting on chessboard to me. And so I never really got into that.
The
And then there's
frustrating part of their argumentation is it usually will commonly, in arguing with atheists, it'll commonly be, oh, the go-to would be, well, see, you atheists, you guys have faith too. You base your thoughts off of, at some point you have to take a leap of faith, and like being like, because I brought up with our senses, and you're like, okay, but your senses, basing off your senses is a little bit different. And even then, to some logical degree, I will grant you, this is based on an assumption. I'm making an assumption here. Yes, there's a leap of faith if you want to be technical. But there go like, well, look, you're being illogical. I'm just starting my logic point at the Bible, and I'm, just as logical as you, if not more logical. So
it's basically like solipsism. If you say no, then God.
Exactly. Like, you're fucking illogical because you don't believe in solipsism. I'm like, I'm just saying all I have to operate off the world is my senses, and sure, there's a possibility solipsism is the thing, but I mean,
who
it's
cares
kind of
if
this,
it is? If it is,
like
who cares?
It's intellectual masturbation. You're going down this weird spiral quagmire. Like, what if you're there?
Yep. So but so yeah, then there's like the William Lane Craig style of like apologists who try to be like really philosophical and come up with these really good syllogisms and proofs, which I got into that for a little bit, but even then, like, if you try really hard, you can usually find holes there and stuff, and they're not perfect. Then there's some people that are like, well, I just use everything. I use all the arguments and I throw them all against the wall, and it's kind of like quantity over quality. It's like, I'm going to throw so much word salad out there, you can't possibly refute all of it, and therefore I'll just claim I won the debate. So Christians are not really good at doing that. I basically take a Sterner-esque approach to why I believe in God. It's like, I believe in God because, like, I look at the world and I go, I would prefer if God was real, because I think it makes reality make more sense, and it makes the human experience better, in my opinion. So it's like, it's, you know what I mean? And like, especially from like, it's a very personal thing too. So it's like, why would I, it's like, even if I don't have the most sound argumentation for why I believe God exists, it's like, well, I don't care, because I believe God exists and it brings meaning to my life, and it makes sense of the world for me. So that's all I need. Like, it really is that simple.
This is where I respect the Orthodox and the presuppositionalists, because they will kind of, in a sort of flippant way, admit that it's not based off logic. And if you are coming from it from that perspective, it's like, I don't really even have anything to pick at there, even as an atheist.
That's
not that I would. I'm not that kind of atheist, but it's still like there's like, okay, as long as you're accepting, like, it's like, to some extent, I'm just doing this because I want to, and maybe it's a little bit logical, maybe it isn't, I don't really care. Well, whatever.
To me, that's what genuine faith is, right? Mm-hmm. Like, because and I hate it's like, it's faith. It's not science. It's not, I know this to be true. It's like I am choosing to believe this is true, in the spite of not being able to prove it's true. Like, to me, that's sort of definitionally what faith is. I don't know. Like, that's the way I look at it, at least. But,
so, given let's move on. Let's move on.
Sure.
I am really curious to hear y'all's thoughts on this. Let's presuppose that some people are better than
back on
others.
Presuppositionalism. No, I'm just fucking
and I don't mean like Michael Jordan's better at basketball than me, but like, some people are better, either because through some action or through some inherent virtue. I don't know what that might be, but some people are better than others. What does that mean to you? And how, like I guess the question becomes, what is like the purpose of a human? Like, not what's Jose's purpose and what's Jacob Daniel's purpose and what's my purpose, but like, what is the telos of humanity?
I mean, whatever you want to be at an individual level. I already kind of addressed that, I guess. But I mean, when I hear that question too, I just think like, I guess when someone says are some people better than others, I immediately just assume they mean by some given metric. Obviously, I'm sure if we could cosmically add up all the attributes of every individual person, they'd probably end up being somewhat even, because I'd say generally even the worst of people usually make up for it in other ways, sort of. But even then, I'd say some people are better than others. But I mean, so far as like a telos, what is the purpose of humanity or people in general? I mean, I don't like. I think that's up to the individual to determine. So if by your metric are some people better than others, if you're better at being able to make a makeshift tent, then yeah, homeless guys can be better at it. But even then, by that hierarchy, yeah, I mean, I hear it. I immediately assume someone's saying by X metric, and it's not even like a given thing. So
okay, so does LB, who I've talked to the most about this. So to me, when I'm posed with that question, my immediate response, it's not a speech or a yes or no. It's at what? That's what I'll ask somebody.
Yeah, that's what I think in the head.
Yeah,
I just say yes.
My answer could be considered a Catholic answer or maybe just a strict biological answer, but my answer is to be fruitful and multiply. That's what I think the telos of humanity is.
He gave a speech. He's a fucking lefty.
I think we knew that. Yeah, I think, Jacob, that I'm a little bit in agreement with you. So, like, speaking biologically, the telos of like any species is to propagate, I guess.
Well, yeah, I was trying to say, like, so it's like that's the biological part of it. It's like it's almost like a well, duh, but like, is there something more? Which I guess there is. I would add to that, but I guess like first and foremost, I think that's the most basic answer.
Yeah. You know what? The funny thing is, I've brought up before. I've mentioned multiple times how I'm like a Stirnerite atheist, but yet I still somewhat kind of end up having roughly the same values as like a Christian conservative, and it is kind of it right here. I would even admit this. Yes, when it comes to like biology, yes, fruitful and multiply. That is at the end of the day. That is like at our core. And I will agree that like on an individual level, you can kind of determine your own purpose, but it's going to be somewhat, if not largely driven by biological factors as much as you try to fight it.
Well, this
you
is
are a human being.
And this is where Jordan Peterson, the great postmodernist, as James likes to in a trolling way call him.
No. I'm entirely sincere when I say that.
No, I know, but I mean it's trolling. It's trolling in a way that it's trolling in a way because like he doesn't think he is. So
right.
But no, I kind of agree with you, because if you go back and listen to his first debate with Sam Harris, he's basically making a postmodern argument about like truth, which in a way is sort of something that I kind of agree with in a sense, because he's like, well, something is true if it like promotes the flourishing and survival of the species, and it's not true if it doesn't. Which, I know a lot of people have criticized him for kind of like he's obfuscating the meaning of the word true, but I don't know. To me, it's like, I think there's a reason why Christianity, and I think, to be fair, especially Catholicism, because let's face it, Presbyterians are not influencing culture. I mean, not that the Catholic Church has been perfect, but the Catholic Church has been the most influential in, at least, our civilization, roughly speaking. And, I think that, to me, that's the second best argument for why I believe souls exist, and why I believe, and then I'll, answer the question, are some people better than others? But the reason why I think souls exist is because believing souls exist and believing in these things are what are the best for our species, which you might not think, Jose is an argument for why God is real or why you should believe in this stuff, but you do sort of agree, like you agree that those are the values.
I agree with both those things you just said. That is not a proper argument for the truth of it, but it's a great argument for a sociological thing, like for like groups. And I actually completely agree with that in a sense. I think like the way I see it, ideally it'd be best if somehow magically you could get everyone to have a rational worldview of something that I would think would be more rational, not religious, etc. But I accept that most people aren't going to put in the intellectual legwork to get there. It's a lot easier to have a religion go, here you go.
All right. So this is my edgy, like, I don't know, it might be edgy. I don't know if it is or not. Here's what I'm getting at. Yes, some people are better than others. and that's why we need religion, because we have a lot of people who are stupid. Which, like, this is basically like, so Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson then had like 6 more talks, and this is basically the conclusion they came to in all, and like all their hours of talking, was Jordan Peterson basically saying religion has to be true, or at least you have to act like it's true, because like people are too stupid and society's too stupid to function without it. I basically just take that and go, like, I make one assertion past that, which is like, well, if we need it to survive, I choose to think that there must be something deeper to it.
Yeah,
that's basically all I'm doing.
I agree. I think it was actually one of Reed's episodes. I believe he had like Phil Labonte on and somebody else, and they were talking about like religion and in the context of like the founding or whatever, because that's like a common place people go, be like, oh, you need a religious nation to have a good blah blah blah, and a lot of people will point out how religious the United States was around like the founding, and then some people will claim the founders religious, some people will claim they weren't. I mean, a lot of them weren't. And then but the main takeaway I got from that discussion was like, yeah, there were a lot of religious people, and then the people, the elites, whether you want to call them natural or otherwise, were the ones who maybe some were, maybe some weren't. Like, and like, okay, maybe there is something to the fact of maybe we need some sort of quick, easy, thing of this is okay, this isn't, for essentially the peasants, if you will. Whereas it's okay for some of the higher ups or the people who are the movers and shakers to have a little bit more nuance to their thinking. Maybe that makes me like condescending to the masses, but it is what it is. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think, and I don't want to get James' reaction to what I said, but like one thing Jordan Peterson said to make it a bit more humble than what he said. Well, the thing is though, like none of us are at the top or smart over the entirety of our life. Like there's some people that rise to the top, but then like, it's very rare for someone to rise to the top and stay at the top like forever. And some people they make a series of like smart decisions, but they're usually at some point going to end up back at the bottom again. And in a sense, it's like even the people who might not intellectually believe in it and need it, they still sort of need it in a sense that like they wouldn't be able to do that, climbing up the hierarchy if the society wasn't, embedded in that ethos to begin with. Does that make sense? It's sort of like they can only get by not believing it if the majority of the other people believe it. Otherwise, they would not be really afforded that luxury, I think. I don't know. I
think you may have lost me a little bit, to be honest with you. I don't know if you
like when you said like the people at the top can basically get away with not with sort of,
I wouldn't say get away. I guess maybe just more the fact that they'd be when it comes to the masses and then the elites that are kind of pushing culture, whether they're natural or otherwise. I do think there is some utility to having a some sort of quick and easy, and I'm not even saying an authoritarian fashion. If it's just kind of even if it happens naturally, culturally, I do think there is probably some sort of advantage to that.
But I think the other thing is there's an advantage to having the elite be involved in the pushing of that of the religion, because otherwise I think that's when they're not. I think that's when
there's something.
Think that can be. I think when society starts to sort of walk away from it a little bit is when it becomes like when and this reminds me of a conversation you and I had, James, like I think maybe the first or second time you came on my show, which was like what's the problem with with the church, right? Like the institution of a church, and why have so many people been walking away from it? And it's like that, I feel like the problem is the church has not been it's not been updating itself in a meaningful way, and the only efforts it seemingly has tried to make have been to try to change itself to be more like the world, which is like
the church, and this is very broadly speaking, whether it's basically everybody but the Orthodox really have been trying to pour new wine into old wineskins, and it just doesn't work. I think that though given that we are at the end of, and I truly firmly believe this is why I keep just asserting it rather than just like making an argument for it. And if you want to hear an argument for it, listen to like literally every other podcast appearance I've ever done in my life. But given that we're nearing the end of this modern age and entering into a new kind of more incorporeal spiritual type age, which is why the political movements are coming into the fore right now, because when you think about it, electoral politics is really sort of a materialist kind of thing, whereas activism is more of a moralistic immaterial type of thing, and so that's why you've got this rise of populism on the right, the rise of wokeness on the left, and
these are all sort of just competing religions at this point, though.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like we're seeing that. Like, I think you're right. We're at the end of one age and moving into another, and like we can see that we're seeing that transition happen right now in front of us, because so many of these things that have nothing that aren't really religious in a traditional sense are more and more embodying a religious.
Well, and orthodoxy is like
yeah.
the only brand of Christianity that just never abandoned that. They've continued to have the aging wine and the old wineskins, and so that's why orthodoxy is really the only brand of Christianity that's kind of growing right now, at least in my opinion. That's more of an assertion that I would need to probably back up with something, but I'm not gonna. So I think like my answer to the telos question, and I'm gonna be exploring this a lot more on my show with future guests. But it kind of clicked with me with Andrew. Actually, we were talking about why is my lifestyle, the fact that I live with a guy, and we live a pretty conventional, like we live like straight people. Like it's not like we're out. Like there's a few stereotypes of gay people, like they have fist fights in their front yard because there's so much testosterone in the house. They're completely promiscuous and open, and they're fucking everybody on the block. They're always on Grindr, etc. And we're like nothing like that. We're like just a very conventional, we kind of know our neighbors, cook dinner every night, and mind our own business kind of couple. So why are we degenerate? And the answer was not that we are degenerate. The answer is that degeneracy is kind of inherent in this lack of procreation, this lack of propagation of the species. My kind of twisting. So that was Andrew's answer. Like the slippery slope is basically always right.
It's kind of a soul thing too. It's if you don't mind me jumping in, like soul kind of makes a point when it comes to like certain races, because there's a lot of people give like hop shit about like degeneracy stuff, and it's like, are you really like, I really have a hard time taking people seriously. If you're like, if I was, are you really trying to tell me that statistics for these given, what we can borderline objectively say are bad things aren't higher in these certain communities than in others? And it doesn't mean every single person within that given community is bad. I mean, it's just kind of the bell curve thing when it comes to like race stuff and shit like that. Like, it's not saying anything about that. But if you're to make a quick and fast judgment based on this external characteristic, there are some logical things you can perchance, maybe reasonably come to,
Well, and the other thing kind of is that, when you look at the word degeneracy, like its root is in like anti-birth, basically. So it kind of makes sense that would be the answer. But the way that I twist it a little bit is that degeneracy, as opposed to I guess generacy, really is talking about building and birthing society rather than individual human beings. And so, if you are being pro-social as opposed to antisocial in your individual dealings, then you aren't by definition being degenerate. At least I kind of hope that that's the case, because I don't like to think of myself as degenerate. Obviously, I think that hopefully most people don't. And if they do, but there are some people who do kind of relish their degeneracy.
Yeah. Well, they try to promote it. You know what I mean? Like they almost try to evangelize it, and that's almost like.
What's the name of that rapper that he had the concert with the devil imagery, and then a bunch of people died at the concert? It was like last summer. in Austin, I
Juice
think.
World, is it? No, that's not right.
Well, anyway, so that happened. I have a friend who he's like an anti-theist. He's not a Satanist per se, but he's one of those people who thinks that God is evil and all religion
Yes, I
is
also
evil.
know Will Bell. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know Will Bell. Is he a libertarian? I think I might have heard the name.
He's the other atheist on the capitalist community.
Real quick, I
Oh.
can't say this enough. Satanists are just cringe atheists. Just so you guys
know.
all know out there, that's all they are.
Yeah,
But go on.
like I'm saying, Will Bell. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, okay. So in any case, he's an anti-theist. Is how I would term him. Oh yeah, wasn't there somebody who had like infant blood like baked into their shoes or something like that?
Oh yeah, that was some rapper. I do remember that too.
Yeah. So anyway, all these rappers did all this. All these rappers did all this satanic stuff last year. It was gimmicky and stuff. But my friend was like celebrating it. He was like, yeah, well, oh, and the other thing is, all these rappers were also like sexual. I don't know if they're like pansexual or bi or whatever they would call themselves, but they certainly weren't like, wholesome heterosexuals having sex with only women. Yeah, they fuck a lot and they fuck anything.
Yeah.
Which, whatever, to each his own. But they were definitely promoting what I would term degeneracy, because they were promoting things that tear down society. And so if there is an antichrist, that's what I think it is. And that's why I think that leftism today, like what we're calling leftism or wokeism or whatever, is the current like opposition to Christianity. And insofar as Christianity buys into it, whether it's the Pope talking about climate change or the Methodist church down the street from me with the rainbow flags hanging from the flagpoles, it is contributing to that antichrist message. And I think that even if a particular, thank you Audrey, Travis Scott and Lil Nas X was the shoes, insofar as a Christian church promotes this stuff, they are promoting the Antichrist. And so, I cringe at that a little bit, and not cringe in like the, oh, you just made a bad joke, but cringe in the like, you're bringing about the end of the world, my friend. Like, I don't like that. I'm not religious really, but I think that religious people should be.
I do like how that's a metaphor that works even in a secular sense, though. Like that, all of that, pretty much. But I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
No, yeah, and I think that's exactly what, like you brought it up, Jose. I was gonna say it too. Like, this is what everyone freaks out about what Hoppe says, and I'm just like, I don't know. It seems to me like very. So, I mean, it's like if everyone in the species doing X would cause the species to die out, then you should at least you should at least have somewhat of a I don't know, like there's definitely a high, like you can't not label that as a higher time preference behavior than at least in comparison, right? Like
and the other thing is, you got to keep in mind when Hoppe's saying this, he's saying this in the context of how to go about creating like a private covenant society or some shit. Yeah, and so it's like, and like people get all offended by this, but if you look at the current state of things under a statist paradigm in a nation when it comes to border control, how the fuck do they do it based on race, based on nationality, based on this? And it's just insanely fucking arbitrary. So like, at least if we're going to base it off of these characteristics, if you're going to have a private like anarcho, covenant city or whatever the fuck, like, wouldn't it make sense if you're going to have, if your rules weren't arbitrary, if you're like, hey, here's this one community of people that we can make the terms of they're not allowed to come in here, they're not invited, and these people have an 80% they have a 60% likelihood of being involved in fatal crimes, etc., blah, 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 blah. Like, wouldn't that make sense? And a lot of people get offended because that has some implications that goes along with it. It's like, but if you're a community that's making quick and fast rules, I'm sorry, like it's the most logical thing to do if you think about it. If you're being restrictive about who comes in, who doesn't. I mean, I'm sure you can use other factors in the future aside from the those characteristics. You could look at job performance. You could look at all sorts of other things. But at the end of the day, if all you have is that basic information, there is things you can figure out based on that information. The likelihood of things to be, you know. So, and that doesn't necessarily mean because of that given characteristic that they are that. It just means for whatever reason or another, whether it's cultural, biological, at that given point in time, those certain demographics are more prone to X, Y, and Z. So it just is what it is.
Audrey asked a question for you, James, which I think you guys talked about this a little bit at the PA convention a little bit, but yeah, so for my audio listeners, I'll read it. It says, nothing more annoying than left libertarians wanting me to flaunt my transness and support gender autonomy planks. Do you get the same, James, being gay? And do they tell you hate yourself?
I don't get it anymore because they know me. I was definitely, when I was a Republican, I was definitely approached by the log cabin Republicans. And when I switched over to the LP, I was approached by outright kind of a lot. They know where I stand now, for the most part, or at least enough of them do that I don't get approached. Now, whether they tell me I hate myself, yes. Just even as recently as last year or whenever it was that the LNC was having these big Zoom meetings where they were, God, I don't even remember what it was about, but
that's one where you got up and defended Josh Smith and people came after you.
I don't remember, honestly. Okay. I was very drunk. We had been at a Twins game that day, so I was already drunk, and then I started drinking when we got home too. But I ranted about how, I'm a gay member of the Mises Caucus. I've never gotten anything but love in the Mises Caucus and acceptance. Like, and Audrey, your experience is similar, I imagine. Like, sure, they don't ask me to be the token, but I don't want to be the token. And so then that kid, this was the same time that Jeremy Kauffman got in trouble for saying the thing about that 15-year-old would probably suck his dick because
he looks like he sucked my dick.
So that was when Jeremy Kauffman put that in the chat, it was that kid whose name I can't remember, ranting about me. And like, I mean, the kid, first of all, like, you don't know how old he is when he's on the screen. So Jeremy, it's not like Jeremy was sexually harassing a minor. Or at least
thing people get mad at,
sexually harassing a minor.
The thing people get mad at is that you double down after being told that, which I'm like, why?
Which is still not, but it's still not. Well, like, it's stupid, but it's still not him trying to court a minor for sexual favors.
Kaufman did nothing wrong.
In any case, this boy gets on screen wearing lipstick, telling me that the reason that I feel accepted by the Mises Caucus is because I'm their token, and I only feel accepted because they pretend to accept me, and all this other bullshit. And I reject that completely, completely and unequivocally. Why are we even talking about this? Oh, right, Audrey. Yeah,
because we have a gay guy here. No, I'm kidding.
You're here. You might as well talk about gayness.
Well, but I think the reason is, so we were talking about like what separates us from like the more woke types, and honestly, I think one of the things is that people like you, James, and people like Audrey, it's like you don't fall into that weird religion where like which I think that when they do it, that's when it makes those things degenerate, because they're doing it in this weird religious evangelistic way. And also this like super cringy way where it's like, hey, the most interesting fact about me is that I'm transgender or that I'm gay, which is like, if I said, hey guys, I'm straight, it's like, who gives a shit? Like, well, it's just like it has nothing. Like, one of the most least interesting things about a person is like where they want to stick their junk.
And
I'm sorry,
people like that, and I don't know if this is just a part of their personality and like something that we just kind of we're going to need to accept or what. But for people like that, it is the pursuit of power over other people is just that's their goal. That's always been the goal of progressives and the left. And
I literally met one of these wokertarians last night on a Zoom call, and they literally spent 5 minutes explaining to me all the different activist things they do, and 90% of them were like trans things, including like one really like they were like, oh, and I started a local a what is it? A leather was it BDM something awareness group in my community. I'm like, what? I was like, what the like again, it's like it's this people take this shit and then turn it into this weird, like they literally are like turning it into a religion where like they have to go out there and find, like, I gotta find more people that can join into my weird kinks and do them with me.
Well, and fair enough. Like I would love if I had like a right wing gay group that I could hang out with here in the Twin Cities. I don't know if it exists or not. I think that would be cool to have that kind of camaraderie that exists somewhere other than online. And who knows, maybe I'll form it. But on the other hand, I don't need it to like mix with what I'm doing as a libertarian or as an entrepreneur or as someone who supports candidate X, Y, or Z. It's just another aspect of my personality. The fact that person brought it up in whatever venue it was that you were in is a little weird to me.
Yeah, it was part of supporting a candidate for office.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
So yeah, it was weird. I don't even know how to respond to any of those. It's literally got off the call like 5 minutes later. I was just like, yeah, this is just gonna. If I said anything, it would just turn into an argument. But yeah, so I guess we've got off on so many tangents. I want to try to let's try to make sure we properly answered the question. Are there some people who are better than others? I don't think that did James really give an answer? I don't think James really gave an answer, so we should give him a chance to answer his own question that he asked us to answer.
I think that if the answer is yes, it means that people who are better at building society rather than tearing down society. So those who are not wedded to degeneracy are the ones who are better than others. I'm still a little bit uncomfortable saying it, but if the answer is yes, that's why.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those tough things because there's something in me, and honestly, Audrey's earlier comment has been bouncing around in my head too, because that kind of resonates with my more reformed Calvinist leanings. But yeah,
I knew you were gonna put that damn chat up. I was like, oh, he didn't see it.
No, I saw it. No, but it is interesting. Just if there's some people that are better than others, it's like, well, how extreme does that go? And I don't know. See, I don't want it to be. Here's the thing. Like I've always kind of, and I've sometimes from the this is the part of the conversation where Jose is just like, no idea what we're talking about, but like, you might have an idea, but he doesn't care as much. But like, even though I have that reformed lean, I've sometimes, I used to refer to myself as a 4-point Calvinist because I believed in the T, the U, and the I and the P, but I didn't believe in the L. I didn't think the atonement was limited. So so it's basically a fancy way of calling yourself a universalist. You call yourself a 4-point Calvinist. And I don't know. I still go back and forth on that. I have no idea. But it's just the idea, like in the Christian sense, like if you believe that there are some who don't get saved, it's like, I don't know. That's another interesting thing. And then you get into the whole, trying to understand how God, like, how can God love somebody?
He's got a dick.
Yeah, well, I mean, these are tough questions. Like, if God loves everybody equally and sent Jesus down on the cross to die for everyone equally, but not all are saved.
Maybe he just really doesn't like Jesus much.
Someone tell knockoff Bane I hate him.
Gay Bane.
What?
I mean,
I don't know. This guy thinks he's a comic.
I don't get it, man. You didn't stick it. I mean, we do have a gay dude, but I don't get any Bane vibes from him.
I hope he's not talking about me. That's not nice.
Well, but I don't even get the Bane thing. I mean, you have a nice voice, but it's not quite a Bane voice.
Is he talking about? No, he wouldn't be talking about Bill Gates. He's not. Is
it my jacket? I don't.
Your jacket. Oh, your jacket. Okay.
Oh, good. Okay.
All right. That was a reach, dog.
Jacob, read Audrey's chat that you put up there that I commented on you putting up there because I mentioned it and you didn't read it for the audio listeners.
Oh, Michael Malice's point about some people not having souls, i.e., the blue pill that will never take the red pill. I could see that in some ways fitting in with the concept of predestination. Yeah, this isn't what we plan. I mean, it kind of is, I guess. Like,
doesn't that
this
make
is
it
why
fucked up that God created those people in the first place, knowing they would go right to hell?
I mean,
Yeah, it is. If you're Calvinists are so fucked up, dude. Like, did God really? I mean, maybe he did create the blue pill, but like, that can't be his.
okay,
will.
but then that means that God fails to save some people, which is like, so that means God isn't omnipotent or all powerful, like God, or like God.
No, Jacob. We are an hour and 20 minutes into this recording.
But
We're
free
not having
choice.
that
Wait, but is free
conversation.
choice even real? If we look
Jesus
at my own,
Christ.
I mean, if you think about how brains work, it's really like a formula.
Jose's 2 beers and like at least 1 hit on his vape. I'm 2 White Russians in. We're not
We can
talking about.
fucking do this. Let's talk about free will. Let's do the free will discussion. Is free will real, guys?
Well, this is the funny thing where the like Calvinists end up like sort of accidentally siding with the hardcore naturalists who believe in hardcore biological determinism. It's like, unintended allies. But you see, I don't know. This is why I still lean reformed, because it's like, I don't know. If there's a good answer out there, I would love to see it. I have not yet seen it. And I guess some people say, well, what makes God evil, or the author of evil? But then it's like, to me, like, how can you say God is evil without having a definition of evil that isn't just subjective?
I've got
Like, if God is, you know what I mean? It's like you're trying to presuppose like moral language that, like, again, like if you're a naturalist, where do you get it from? I don't know.
We're at hour 20. We can do the deep. Where do you get your morality or whatever from?
No,
but, I think James wants to get out here at a reasonable time.
Yeah, I know. I know.
So I woke up at like 3 a.m. this morning. We went to bed late last night anyway, because I was on Adam's show and then I needed to kind of decompress from that. So I woke up at like 3 a.m. Oh, and we had Taco Bell, as everybody who watched Adam's show knows. I was drinking out of a Taco Bell cup the entire time. And so I had like just the worst diarrhea of my life because I'm 39 years old and I can't eat Taco Bell anymore. And I haven't come to grips with that fact yet. So I'm just on the toilet all night, and I finally go back to sleep at about 7 on the couch after I've woken up once. I'm almost late to work. I'm just so exhausted right now. And also I'm a little bit tipsy, and my stomach's better though, so that's good. What were we talking about? Right, tulip. I have a Catholic article and I can't find it. And every time I talk about 4-point Calvinism and how you used to be one, it reminds me of this article, and I've got to find it for you. It's from a Catholic convert from probably Presbyterianism, because all Calvinists are really Presbyterians. And he goes through tulip and translates it into Catholicism and how like it's actually compatible. I think you'll like it. If I can find it. I think it's from a defunct magazine, so it's probably just like at archive.org. But if I can find it, I'll send it to you.
Well, that's why, like, honestly, like, I still pretty much, I mean, like, here's the thing. I don't have certainty in anything, obviously, but I don't have even close to certainty on 4-point Calvinism. But it's what I want to believe is true.
Can you explain what 4-point Calvinism is for me?
All right, so
just real quick.
Okay, really
like a 2-minute elevator pitch.
I'm just
fucking with you. I guarantee this is like an hour lecture. Please don't.
No, it's not. So 5-point Calvinism.
Real Calvinism is 5-point Calvinism.
The joke here, Jacob, was that I was going to give you a long spurg about something extremely niche, and you're going to do it anyways.
Jacob, can I go through tulip and try to see if I can remember it?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so the T in tulip is for total depravity, which means that like humans are just completely filthy and incapable of saving ourselves. Is that close enough?
Yeah.
The U is fuck. I've already forgotten it. What's the U?
Isn't looking good for you, James.
Unconditional election.
Unconditional election, right? So like the elect are the elect, and the unelect are the unelect, and nary the twain shall meet. L is limited atonement, which means that Jesus only died for some people.
Yeah. It's only the Jews, guys. Back it up. He meant when he said chosen people, he fucking meant it. You guys are screwed.
The I stands for irresistible grace, meaning that if you're elect, you can't say no. And the L or the P is
Perseverance.
Perseverance.
I'm just gonna say.
Oh right, perseverance of the saints. The P
Yeah.
is once saved, always saved.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say, and I also make you mad, but that is straight up retarded. I could like have a field day just with like atheist logic on that shit. Like at least like with like fucking Orthodox. Like I respect the fuck out of Orthodox. It's just like, yep, this is what it says. And you're like, well, you want to argue about it? You're like, no, that's fucking retarded. This is what this says. And you're like, okay. I can live with that. We can just move on. We don't have to talk about this. Like,
Well,
all right.
but now that you know what they are, a 4-point Calvinist denies limited atonement, which basically means that you think that God just basically it's like a super fancy way of saying that you believe that when Jesus died on the cross that he saved everybody and everyone goes to heaven regardless of anything else. So
I think that Catholic is it soteriology? Yeah. I think that separates atonement from salvation. So atonement is universal, whereas salvation isn't necessarily.
Yeah, and then
is it soteriology? Is that salvation theology?
Yeah, so yeah, it is. See, I don't even like what happens after you die is just like none of us like we barely know what the fuck's going on here in front of us right now. It's like I have no idea. What I do know is that living my life devoted to Jesus Christ and believing in what the Bible says makes my life better, and I think it makes society better. That's just I don't know, that's just good enough for me. Everything else is like I'm not saying it's unimportant, but like it's sort of like just diving deep into the finer points of theology and stuff, which like, yeah, that can be fun, but it's also like, you know, one of the reasons like I love like even though I'm a Christian, like I love having these conversations and having people like Jose on and talking to Reed and all them is because like I don't need everyone to have the same views that I do to acknowledge the fact that like we're in a foxhole right now and like the enemy's marching towards us and like, you know, like I have the ammo and I need to hand it to Jose so he can gun down the people coming towards us. And it's like, I'm not going to sit here and have a freaking debate over like, you know, but like, am I freely giving you this ammo or was I predetermined to give you this ammo? It's like, you know, I don't know. Like, let's talk about that shit later when we're not like, you know, about to get fucking like dragged off to the gulag or something. You know what I mean? It's just like, I mean, it's fun conversations to have, but like, we all like, you know, as much as we all differ on like some of these things, we share 99% of like the same values.
Yeah,
which is like.
I also would say I basically agree with everything you just said. The only difference would be is I just don't want to be that guy who does it. I think it's great if most other people go to church and they derive their logic from that because I don't have great faith in the human race. And so I like the idea of what I see as a somewhat antiquated kind of book that has a pretty rough, set of morality, especially get viewed through a modern lens. And so, you know what? I think that people should go to town on that. That's great. You know, that's the way I see it. Like, I mean, obviously, like I don't see that as being necessary to have a good life, but I can see how many people do, and I'm fucking all for it. Like, I think more people should get into religion, honestly.
Well, and like the other thing is like, you know, I have my, I guess, cringe Calvinist theology, as James would put it. And
I didn't put it that way. I think David Bradley
I
said that.
Yeah. But
oh no, he said Calvinist nonsense.
Yeah.
I just saw his joke. I saw your joke about me being short earlier too, James. That was pretty good.
Yeah, it was a pretty good one.
Good.
But
like, if you're listening to this on the audio, you need to go watch the YouTube video.
Yeah, honestly, these conversations, like they just putting on the audio, just like it probably just hurts people's heads. But
I usually listen on the audio. I never know what's going on in the chat unless I'm actually on your show.
But I don't know, like. I cannot contest the fact that, like, as much as, like, I don't know, I've had this infatuation with Reformed theology for the past couple years, but, like, it hasn't impacted culture like one bit, like or at least like not even even in the limited ways it has throughout history, it hasn't really positively impacted culture. So I mean, to me, it really just like I don't know. I have my theological reservations, I guess, but I still kind of I look towards it. I kind of just like I'm at the point now where I'm like the most useful tool right now is either it's between Catholicism and Orthodox, or if I can dual wield them and not be declared a heretic, I would do that. But I don't. What did Audrey say here? I'm convinced the wine Jesus made at the wedding at Cana was laced with magic mushrooms.
I love some of these theories, the ones that come out with shit like that. The people who try to go to great lengths to explain like the burning bush. They're like, well, maybe he had this one hallucinogen. I'm like, oh, that's a pretty cool theory. I mean, I don't know, probably bullshit, but whoa, what just happened?
Where did our host go?
Yo, it's our show
Jacob?
now. All right, let's go on
man.
about fucking stoned ape theory and shit like that.
No, yeah, that's the thing that happens. Like as cultural trends happen, they get like ported onto the Bible. So, you know, Jesus was gay and now Jesus was on mushrooms because that's what everybody likes.
I just think Jesus is fake and gay.
I mean,
listen. David Brady put, is Ian Crossland right when he says all the biblical people were wigged out during the events of the Bible? That is, no, they weren't. That is the most ridiculous thing. Everything Ian Crossland says is wrong. That's what that's the moral of that story.
I mean, maybe they were, but I wouldn't take it based on Ian's word.
God. Ian Crossland is wigged out. That's what he does. He just fucking he gets high and he just says the most off the wall ridiculous things on Timcast. I don't know why like even Bob Murphy has fallen for it. Like what? He's not some deep thinker. He's just a dumb stoner actor. Like I don't know. Anyway, that's my opinion of Ian Crossland. Why don't you ask me what I think of Dave Rubin?
Oh my God.
I love brutally honest James. It's hilarious. I mean, you're not wrong. I have nothing to disagree with you.
What? All right. So I got one last question for both of you, and then probably call it quits after that. So, I guess I'll start my question for Jose first. So, yeah, I guess like a way to summarize, like, so there are some people that are better than others. You don't think that it's likely, I guess, that souls are real. What? So is it really? So would you say that it boils down to utilitarianism for you, in a sense, in terms of why morality is important, and if not, I'd be interested in why it doesn't.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I guess in a certain sense, yeah. I mean, I'm very Sterner-esque in the way I view morality, and I do see it in a certain utilitarian sense, and that sounds awful to a lot of people. But then when you realize what I'm saying is, I just find the typical libertarian ANCAP view of morality as the most utilitarian way to go about it. Like that's how I see it. I personally, so I think that living by those type of principles, if you will, is the best way to a free, happy, healthy society, and on the individual and collective level. So,
okay. Yeah. James, last question for you. Sort of a different question with religion. Would you say that you're religious more for or to the extent that you're religious or you believe in Catholicism and Christianity, would you say that you do so more for utilitarian reasons or philosophic reasons, or is there a third category of reasons that I'm leaving out here?
So if I am a Christian, it's for philosophical reasons. If I am a Christian conservative, it's for like practical. What's the word? Utilitarian reasons.
Utilitarian. Yeah.
And not that utilitarianism isn't a branch of philosophy, but you know what I mean. Like if I believe in
true.
Yeah. If I believe in Christianity, then it's because I have
logical reasons,
like reasoned my way there, I guess.
I mean, wouldn't it be weird to be like, so I've always thought like, if morality, even if morality comes from God, to say it's not also utilitarian would be like God makes stupid, unworkable rules.
Yeah, that's kind of my point of why I come from a utilitarian perspective when it comes to morality. Like if you're trying to tell me that it's like in a deontological sense, you're like, well, this may not be like if you're telling me you could prove to me this will lead to bad results, I'm like, well, why the fuck would I do it? Just because it makes me feel warm and fuzzy? Like what? Like if I know it's going to end in disaster, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I don't know, but
yeah, I don't know. It's. I feel like this was a fun conversation. I still have no idea if what a soul is, or if everybody has one, or why some people are better than others. I don't know. But these are really deep subjects that I don't even know how to get to the bottom of. But I think we all agree that there are some people that are better than others. At least when you, at the very least, you can do it by metric. And I don't know what there might not be one ultimate metric that says this human is objectively better than other humans in every way possible. But I don't know. Yeah. It's certainly stuff to think about. This is a good question maybe to end on. What's your favorite thing about Michael Malice? Since he's the one that like inspired half this conversation.
He makes me look really big and buff next to him.
Michael Malice was a complete asshole to my partner. And like it was the first time I'd ever met him. And like the very first thing was him telling my partner that his joke wasn't funny. And that kind of made the entire vibe really awkward. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess we'll just go over here now. It was nice meeting you or whatever. So to make up for it, he came and found us later on and showed us on his phone who the secret guest at the Tom Woods 2000 thing was going to be. So like we were in on the joke. And I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, that is pretty cool.
I guess that's I've now been at two speeches where someone asked, actually the second one was Dave Smith when David asked what his favorite thing about Michael Malice was. Dave Smith's answer, what's your favorite thing about Michael Malice, was like, oh, he's just such a genuine friend, blah, 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 blah. Which, fine. That's great. Michael Malice is a great friend. The other time though was Thad Russell, and his answer to what's your favorite thing about Michael Malice was his height, which I thought was just the funniest fucking thing I'd ever heard, like ever, especially coming out of the mouth of like a dumb, dorky historian. So
yeah.
Anyway,
I do want to let people know, just FYI, I know he always plays hide the ball with his height, and a lot of people like don't know how tall he is. I'm 5'5". I think he was probably about the same height as me, maybe like an inch or less shorter. So he's like 5'4", 5'5", just so people know. So
I don't know, that seems a little high.
Yes.
No, it's very low.
All right. Well, hey guys,
nice. I look super buff next to him.
You do. You look like Jose. You look like an Oompa Loompa kind of, only like a really buff one.
A buff Oompa Loompa. I like it.
Yeah. But by the way, for the audio listeners, if you want to hear something amazing, go back and listen to this at like 1.5 times speed and listen for Jose's laugh. It's like my least favorite thing in the world. I listen to all podcasts at like 1.5 at least times speed. And like, I don't know how your laugh goes from sounding normal, like here, to sounding like something that came straight out of like Satan's Playhouse.
Do you ever listen to the Mad Ones or Propaganda Report when Monica Perez is on vacation?
No.
Okay, so Cam Harless, who you guys might know him from Twitter or whatever, but so he hosts the Mad Ones and sometimes he fills in on the Prop Report. He constantly laughs. Like he's got this just nervous chuckle. It's like it makes Jose look like a just normal laugher, really. Which, by the way, Propaganda Report, I'm so sad. Monica, I don't know how many people listen to her show. Like, I don't know if you have a bunch of crossover, but it's my favorite podcast. I never miss it. And she's leaving the show. It really sucks because she's like my favorite person in the world. So anyway, I'm getting delirious at this point, and also I'm getting a little bit more under the influence of the alcohol I've been imbibing.
Let's get out of here.
It's getting really bad.
Cool. All right. Hey, thanks guys again for coming on. Thanks for those for watching. For some reason you're all entertained by our banter. So as long as you guys keep showing up, we'll keep doing this. So if you don't like it, don't come back next time. All right. On that note,
All right.
I'm gonna